Joining us now is a candidate for Senate in Delaware, Jess Scarane. Welcome to the Damage Report.
Hey, John, thanks for having me.
Glad to have you on. Excited to talk about your candidacy and some of what's going on around the country that I'm sure is shaping pretty much every campaign right now. But before we get into, like, for instance, your platform and your opponent, tell us a little bit about you and what you're bringing to the race.
Yeah, so I'm a Delawarean who has been driven into this race based on what I've seen in the world around me. And that has really been that so many of the problems that we are seeing in the city of Wilmington, where I live, our state as a whole and our country as a whole, are really caused by this broken power of system that is holding up people who are already wealthy, already powerful, and forcing the rest of us to struggle so hard. And right now, we have a senator who upholds that system and who is not working hard to break it down. And that's why I believe that Delaware actually deserves a senator who's going to take power back from corporations, who's going to return it to the people and legislate in favor of the people of Delaware.
So let's talk a little.
My background is, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, no, tell me about your background.
Yeah, so my background is actually in digital marketing. I have worked as a strategist and focused on building web and web apps and mobile apps. But in my spare time, I really focused on volunteer work and working for nonprofits. And that was how I tried to make change in my state for a long time. But what I started to realize is that when you are still working within this system that we have in play, that change is way too individualized and it's way too small to have the impact that we really need. So when I was tutoring, when I was mentoring young students, when I was working on the board of a nonprofit here that's focused on advocating for the rights of girls and women, yes, that made a difference, but it still didn't change the system that we were operating in. And that is what I think our federal government should be focused on. And that is why I want a seat at that table to actually bring the voice of the people that I was supporting through that nonprofit work into Washington, D.C.
So you talked about the limited ability to like radically change things on the outside. So let's say that you end up winning, you replace Chris Coons. What are some of the efforts that you would want to champion from the inside?
Yeah, we have a very bold platform, but some of the key things that we have focused on have really been driven by the conversations that we've had with voters. Very first top of mind is getting Medicare for all for this country. I think that is relevant right now, and it was relevant before this coronavirus outbreak as well. It is one of the top things that we hear at doors and on phone calls when we're talking to voters. Everyone recognizes that our healthcare system is broken and we need to fix it. I also really want to champion fighting for equitable education. As I mentioned, some of my background in nonprofit work was focused on education and tutoring and mentoring young students. And I see that as a real root cause problem to some of the other problems that we see in our country. And I believe we need to be championing free public education from childcare and pre-K all the way through trade school, public college, because childcare costs are completely crippling families right now. And we tell students that they need to get some sort of higher education, yet the costs of that are crippling them. And I don't think the ability to pay should be a barrier to taking advantage of opportunity. We also know that go ahead.
Oh, no, sorry, continue.
No, I was going to say, we also absolutely need to combat the climate crisis. Delaware is the lowest lying state in the country. We are already seeing effects of climate change in our state, where farmers are losing land because salt water is infringing on fresh water. We have places in our state that flood even when it's not raining because the tides are so high, and flood even worse when it does rain. So we are already on the front lines of this, and I propose that we need to sign on to a Green New Deal and would sign on to that legislation to fight back against climate change. I also would fight for things like particularly economic justice, raising the minimum wage to at least $15 an hour, as well as demilitarization of our police and broader decarceration to fight back against the prison industrial complex that has taken over our country.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.